want to find that drive and focus that has you locked in and on fire every single day, my book, The Mirror of Motivation, will do it for you. I bought a copy for you. You take care of the shipping. The book is free. Click the link down there. I got you. Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. This is that go-getter energy that moves me, you, and everybody else out there to go make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. Putting all this together, what you get is the mindset, the method, the podcast, the philosophy, the book, the lifestyle known as Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic is how to stop being and how to stop thinking like a cheap individual. How can you just stop being cheap? Any of you know some cheap people in life? You know, people who they hold on to every penny they have, every dollar they have, whether they got a lot of them or they only got a few of them. I just talked in episode number 1249 about why it is worth it to pay for the best, why it makes sense to pay for, invest in, spend on the best. But maybe we should go a level deeper than that. We should go to the level that comes before getting around the mindset of paying for the best. We should dig into the roots of many people's challenges with paying for things. The root of many people's challenges with spending money is not that they don't see the value maybe necessarily in paying for the best. It's not that they can't tell what is good versus what is kind of crappy. It's not even about how much money a person has. The biggest challenge, the root of the whole challenge, is the fact that people are cheap. The definition of cheap is low in price. But I'm not talking about cheap in terms of a product or service that you pay for. I'm talking about cheap in terms of the way that you think. We're talking about in terms of your mindset. You have a low in price mindset. That's what we're going to work on in today's episode. Again, the topic is how to stop being and thinking like a cheap individual so you can stop being a cheap person. Point number one, cost and value is the first thing you need to understand. You need to understand the difference between the two. And you need to understand how the equation works between the two. You need to understand the relationship between them, the difference and their relationship. Cost, ladies and gentlemen, is the number on the price tag. Cost is the dollar sign and the number that follows the dollar sign on a website when you're thinking about buying something on Amazon or on somebody's sales page, or somebody sends you an email telling you about their book or their product or their course. Cost is what you pay for something. Everyone is familiar with cost, right? How much do you pay every month for your phone bill? How much do you pay for your internet? How much did you pay for the sneakers that you have on? How much did you pay for that dress that you're wearing right now? How much will you have to pay to get your computer fixed or to get your iPhone screen repaired? How much does it cost to buy a hamburger at this restaurant that you're going to for lunch? Cost is the price tag number of anything that you're going to have to pay for. That's how many dollars or euros or francs or whatever denomination, pesos, whatever denomination of currency you are using. That's what you got to pay for something. Value, on the other hand, is the importance and usefulness of something. Cost is what you pay. Value is the importance and usefulness. When value exceeds cost, that's when you buy things. Now, I'm not telling you that as advice. That's not my advice to you to buy things when value exceeds cost. That's a formula that all of us use every single day to make purchasing decisions. The last thing that you purchased it because you made in your mind, probably unconscious, you did this calculation. What is the cost of this thing and what's the value of it? When the value is more than the cost, you buy, or the price. The price and cost are the same thing. When the value is more than the cost or more than the price, you make a purchasing decision, you buy. When the value is less than the cost of the price, you also make a purchasing decision and you don't buy. When we feel the equation is out of whack, we either don't buy, we cancel the purchase that we've been making, we stop making that purchasing decision, we alter our decision, or if we're stuck in the situation, we are unhappy. For example, I have an internet company that's charging me $70 a month for service that's not even that good. Internet's not that fast. It doesn't work throughout the house the way that it's supposed to. Their customer service is not that great. I sent them you know how some companies have, now you can do customer service through social media. You can hit them on Facebook or Twitter, and then they'll send you a DM and try to handle your issues. Some companies are really good at it. American Airlines, for example, really good at handling situations through Twitter. I tweeted them once and told them for some reason my, what do they call it? The TSA thing. TSA pre-check was not applied to my boarding pass. I was on my way to the airport in the Uber, and I tweeted American Airlines and told them that. And American Airlines was smart enough that all they did was just look up my name, and they knew who I was, I guess, because maybe I had exchanged messages with them before, but they looked up my name, saw that I had a flight that day. Maybe they saw my location was Miami, so they saw the airport that I was flying out of. They were able to locate me through their system, add my TSA frequent, known traveler number to my boarding pass, and then they just tweeted me back and said, we took care of it, done. They didn't even have to get any information from me. I didn't have to talk to anybody on the phone. I didn't have to wait for somebody to get back to me. That's the way you're supposed to handle it when you're doing customer service through social media. But this other company named AT&T, maybe you heard of them, I tweeted them and they're like, all right, well, this is what the person told me. We keep your information in the system for 48 hours after you send us a tweet, and then the person who gets assigned it, they call you, and if they can't get you on the phone, you can try to call them back. And I called them back and they didn't answer the phone, and then I had to get another person on the phone, and they said, we don't have your information in front of us, so what you need to do is send us another tweet so another person can have your information and be assigned you, and you can be in the system again, and then you can get somebody on the phone. That's really what happened. So AT&T, y'all are not doing it too well when it comes to customer service on the internet. But I'm bringing AT&T up to tell you that they're the internet company that's charging me $70 a month for service that I'm not even satisfied with. It's not worth $70 a month. But the way that it works here, I don't know any of you who live in a condominium or an apartment building. Oftentimes what happens is that these companies, these service companies, they'll get an exclusive contract with the living place, the living space, the community. And you don't have a choice but to use their service. So if you want internet in the building I live in, you have to use AT&T. In another place, you have to use Hotwire. Another place, it might be you have to use, what's the other ones? Comcast. And usually when they have these exclusivity agreements where they have a monopoly over everyone in the building, usually the service hasn't always been so great. Sometimes it's good, but oftentimes it's not. So now I'm telling you all of that to tell you that AT&T, who's charging me $70 a month for internet, their value is not exceeding their price, but I'm stuck with their bum asses, robbing me blind every 30 days for this internet service because I have no other choice. I don't like this. So I'm hoping that very soon Google or Apple or one of these next generation internet companies starts offering internet that I'm not going to be limited based on where I live, and there's no way for a company like AT&T to get a monopoly and block me from having power of choice. But most of us know the cost of things. Getting back to the first point that we're making here, which is the difference between cost and value and the relationship between cost and value. Most of us know the cost of things, right? We can recite costs by memory. How much do you pay each month for this? And somebody just went down a list and started asking you stuff. How much do you pay each month for your meals, or the money you spend at the grocery store, your internet bill, your phone bill, or if you have a phone on a lease, or you have a payment plan for your phone, how much do you got to pay each month for that? How much do you pay for the sneakers you got on? How much do you pay the last time you went shopping? How much does it cost to go to the movies? How much does it cost to get into your favorite club or bar? How much does a drink cost at your favorite place that you like to go to eat? We usually know these things off the top of our head, the cost of things. Most of us are very familiar with cost and price, but we often don't consider value, which is a completely different thing. See, people who are cheap, they only know about cost. That's the only thing they know. They know exactly how much that price is, exactly how much things cost, exactly how many of their dollars and cents they're going to have to give up to get a certain thing. A cheap person will say something like, I'm not paying XXX amount of dollars for XXX product or service. Well, what specifically is the thing that you're paying for? Where is it? Who else is going to be there? What else do I get? All these questions, if you don't have the answers to these questions, then you don't quite know the value of the thing that you're paying for. So you shouldn't be making a decision on what you would pay for based on its cost. And this is what cheap people do. So here's the kicker, just in case that somebody missed that. If you're the type of person who says, I'm not going to spend X amount of dollars on a certain thing without even considering any of the elements that go around it, you are cheap. I know some cheap people, and there's some cheap people listening to this. You know I'm talking about you. Maybe not you specifically that I know you, but you know I'm talking about you because you probably have used this language. I'm not going to spend $300 on a hotel room. Well, where's the hotel at? You know, who else is going to be at this hotel? Why am I even going to this hotel? You know, what am I getting in exchange for my $300? I need to have answers to those questions before I know whether the hotel room is worth $300 or not. You know, you have to know what the value is. The value of something is everything that you get that goes around it. What is its worth to you? The importance of it. What's the usefulness of it? Then you know whether it's worth the amount of money that you're actually spending. All of these questions are telling me the value. And a lot of times cheap people, most of the time, cheap people just decide in their minds, this is how much this thing is worth. This is how much it should be worth to get on a plane, or how much it's worth to buy a book, or how much it's worth to hire a coach, or how much it's worth to take an online course, or how much it's worth to stay at a hotel, or how much it's worth to buy an outfit for the weekend. They decide that this is how much it's worth, and anything that, not even worth, this is how much it should cost is the better phrase that I should be using there. Anything that goes over that number, that price, that cost, a cheap person is not even considering it, because again, they're a cheap individual. They never even think to ask or answer these other questions, because they never thought of the first of all, the difference between cost and value, and second of all, the relationship between the two. Again, when value exceeds price, that's when you buy. And I'll explain as we go further in this episode exactly how you'll know that, and how you can start changing some of these cheap mindsets that you cheap individuals may have. Point number 2. Today's topic is how to stop being and thinking like a cheap person. Second point, let's refer back to one of our favorite laws that we talk about here all the time, which is the law of association. Contrary to popular opinion, maybe general opinion, maybe what you've heard, we do judge books by their cover. We judge books by their cover in a literal sense, meaning if you go to a bookstore and you see a book with a cheap looking cover, you probably won't even pick the book up to find out what's in it. The writing may be amazing, but if the cover looks cheap, that book's not going to sell too well. You may be an amazing person, but if the cover of your book, so to speak, looks cheap, your product's not going to sell too well. And how people judge you often determines what they're willing to do for you, or what they're willing to do with you, and what they're willing to buy from you. Would you agree? So if people don't like the cover of your book, they're not even going to bother reading the introduction to see if it's a good book. They're not even going to bother telling their friends about it. They're not even going to bother considering purchasing anything from you, even though you have the perfect sales pitch and the perfect product at the perfect price. They will never find out, because they've already made a judgment about you by your cover, by the cover of your book. So you need to think about what the cover of your book is when you go out into the world, based on who you're trying to sell to, based on who your audience is going to be. You ever any of you who've ever sat in first class on a plane, you notice that they treat you differently when you sit in first class, even though you're the same person that you were last week when you were on a different plane sitting in coach. Same person, different situation. You've surrounded yourself with different people. The law of association applies to you differently based on how you are associating yourself with other people, based on what you decided to invest in, based on what you decided to spend money on, based on the fact that maybe you decided to not be cheap one time, you decided to be cheap another time, or maybe it was another reason. But the whole point is the law of association. That's an easy example. Any of you who's ever done it, you can tell the difference, can you not? Even though you're the same person. And here's the thing about the law. Another thing about the law of association is that cheap people cannot be givers. And I've talked about how the most successful people in life are people who give the most often. We just talked about that recently. A cheap individual cannot acquire success through giving, because a cheap person doesn't have anything to give. Not because they don't have stuff, they don't have anything to give. See, having things and having something to give is two different things. If any of you ever walked into a grocery store, or I don't know, maybe it's a Walmart or any one of those big box stores around the holiday season, which is fast approaching upon us as I'm recording this, you may notice those people working charities, right? It'll be it's sometimes the Red Cross, there's the Salvation Army. They stand in front of a grocery store or something, ringing that bell, asking you to put some money in there. So if you're walking into a grocery store, you probably have some money. Now, you probably could give if you wanted to. And I'm not telling you that you need to give every time you see somebody asking for charity outside of a grocery store. But the thing is, the cheap person who's walking in there isn't going to give to the charity, not because they don't have money, but because the cheap person's mindset is, I don't have anything to give. Everything that I have, I got to keep for myself. Everything that I have, I got to know the cost. I got to know the cost of it. I got to know the price of it. I don't have anything extra. The person who is a giver, the successful person who gives, because you're not going to be a giver if you're not a successful person. And you're not going to be a successful person if you're not a giver. They understand that there's more where that came from. They understand that when it comes to their money, their time, their energy, their attention, their focus, though they can only sometimes use one at a time, they understand that there's always more where it came from. So they're willing to give. Again, this is not about giving to a charity. It's not about dropping a couple dollars in a Salvation Army bucket. I'm just using that as an example. Cheap people are unable to give, not because they have nothing, but because in their mind, they don't have anything to give. There's a difference between having something and having something to give. You have something to give when you know there's more of it. When you don't believe there's more of it, you're in a scarcity mindset. So you could have a lot. You could have $1 million in cash in your pocket, but if you're in a scarcity mindset, you're not willing to give $1 of it because you're not so sure you'll ever replace it. And power cannot accrue to a person who holds on to everything that they have. If you're too busy hoarding what you have, it'll be impossible for you to level up in relationships, because who are you going to run into in your relationships? If you're hoarding everything that you have and you're not willing to give anything, what type of people are you going to meet when you're out there networking, if you want to call it that, or you're out there building relationships and interacting with other people? You know you're going to run into? You're going to run into more cheap individuals who are just like you. Why? Because they're on the same wavelength as you. They're thinking the same way that you're thinking. If you don't want cheap people around you, you got to stop being a cheap person. When you start giving, you're going to come across other giving individuals. When you start understanding that there's more where that came from, whatever that is, you're going to come across more people who understand that there's more where that came from. And all of you are going to be on the same page, and that's how you interact. But if you interact with a person who is on a completely different wavelength than you, it's just going to feel like you two are rejecting each other. It's like two magnets with the same pole facing each other, just pushed away from each other for some reason. You can't even explain it, but that's the way that it goes. So this is the law of association. Being willing to give of what you have, being willing to utilize what you have to invest in things that are worth more than their cost, will associate you with other people who do the same thing. And we have a sixth sense for understanding who's who, as far as people who are willing to give of what they have and people who are not willing to give of what they have. And here's the thing that happens. We treat people differently based on what we believe in our subconscious mind, what they have, what they're willing to give, and the type of people with whom they associate. And we make this as a snap judgment within like 2 seconds of meeting a person, maybe sometimes longer, but we make this as a snap judgment. We decide very quickly what type of person we're dealing with. And the law of association will show you by your associations. Look around the people who you associate with on a consistent basis, who you are. It don't show you who they are, it shows you who you are. Point number 3. Today's topic is how to stop thinking like and being a cheap individual. Understand to not be cheap. To get out of this cheap mindset does not mean that you should just go and be reckless with your spending decisions. I doubt anybody's taking it as that. And hopefully you didn't just start spending recklessly while you've been listening to this because you thought that. So if you did, go get a refund. Or you didn't open the package yet. To not be cheap means understanding the value of things and not just the cost of things. So for example, would you pay $500 for a pair of sneakers? That's a question that I'm asking you. Now, before I tell you the answer to this question, the right way to answer this question, I want to tell you something else. If you answered the question yes, or you answered the question no, you need to rewind and listen to this episode from the beginning again, because obviously you haven't been paying attention. Whether you would pay $500 for a pair of sneakers, you can't answer yes or no because you don't have enough information. First of all, you need to find out what kind of sneakers are they. All right, where'd you get the sneakers from? Is there anything special or distinct about these sneakers from any other pair of sneakers that would make it worth the amount that you're charging for it, the amount that's being asked for it? Well, if I told you they are game worn and autographed by LeBron James after his very first NBA game, and you could probably sell them on eBay for $20,000, would you pay $500 for them? Of course, now you would, because now you had the information that tells you the value exceeds the price. Different question, cost versus value. Let me ask another question. Would you pay $300 for a cake, a pound cake? I'm talking about the whole cake, not just a slice, but for a whole cake, would you pay $300 for that cake? Now you might be wondering, well, Dre, I can get a pound cake from the local grocery store for $25, $15, $10. Why would I pay $300 for a cake? That doesn't make sense. Well, you don't have all the information. What if I told you a little bit more about the value of the cake? What if I told you that this $300 cake was your wedding cake? Now, would you get your wedding cake for $15 from the local grocery store? Probably not. What if I told you it was a birthday cake for your best friend? Would you spend $300 on it? Maybe you would, depending on who your best friend is, the type of relationship you all have. Maybe you would spend $300 on it. See, this is the difference between cost and value. Cost is just a number, people. Cost is just a number. Cost is just money. Cost is just dollars and cents. Value is what you are getting in exchange for your dollars and cents. I told you a story a couple weeks back on the show of how Tony Robbins, when he was first starting his career, someone invited him to a mastermind group, told him all the great people who were going to be there, the great location they were going to have it at, and it was going to cost Tony $30,000 to be a part of this mastermind group. And Tony said I had to check my calendar. He told the guy I got to check my calendar simply because Tony knew that was a whole lot of money for him at the time. And he wasn't sure he wanted to spend that type of money to get into this mastermind group, even though the mastermind sounded like a great experience. And the guy who was pitching Tony on the mastermind responded to Tony's statement by saying, what, Tony, you'll check your fucking calendar? Do you know who's going to be at this group? Do you know what you're going to get out of being involved with these people, of just standing next to them, even if you get nothing tangible from them? And Tony Robbins, he got the point. He did invest the $30,000 and get into that mastermind. And what the point that he was conveying later on, many years later, when he was telling the story of his, was that proximity is power. Being around the right type of people is worth more than the dollar sign that you're probably going to have to give up in order to get there. Even though for his $30,000, he is not like he was being handed a new car or a private jet or a bunch of new custom tailor-made suits. He was investing the 30 grand into relationships. He was investing it into knowledge. He was investing it into associating his name with a whole bunch of other names that were worth more than his name. They had more value to their name than he had to his at that time. And even once his value got up, even to this day, if his value is high, I'm sure he wouldn't think twice about investing that type of money in a mastermind now, simply because he can take his value, give it to others, and other people can take their value and give it to his, because everybody has different things that they bring to the table. If you're in that type of group, you're in a mastermind group. Those of you who don't know what a mastermind is, please go read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. You should have read it already. I've mentioned it enough times here on the show. Being cheap is about looking at the number and saying that's too much for me to spend on that thing. But understand, until you know what you're getting, until you understand the value of something, you can be very cost wise, but value foolish. Cheap people are very price conscious, but they are value unconscious. They don't understand their value. I won't even say value unconscious. Let's say they are value ignorant. And ignorant means to not know. It means to lack information, to be uninformed. When you don't know anything about the value of something, you are not in position to judge its price. Let me repeat. When you are ignorant of the value of something, you don't know what its actual usefulness is to you. You don't know what its overall importance is to you. Do not judge it by its price. Would you pay $1,000 for a plane ticket? Maybe. Depends on where you're going on that plane. Depends on how soon you need to be on that plane. Depends on where you're going to get when you get off that plane. Depends on what airline you're flying on and why you're getting on the plane. All of those factor into the value, right? Would you pay $1 for a plane ticket? You're like, man, $1 for a plane ticket? I would absolutely pay $1 for a plane ticket. But let me tell you a situation where I wouldn't pay $1 for a plane ticket. If it was on Spirit Airlines. All right, so this is, any of you have ever flown Spirit Airlines, I don't know if you're a fan of it, but I absolutely will not fly Spirit Airlines under any circumstances. And if they had a $1 flight, I'm not flying. I will pay extra. I'll pay $100 or $150 or $225 and fly on a different airline rather than fly on Spirit, because the value of the experience does not exceed that $1 cost. Just my experience. So if I ever do a customer service gripes episode, then I guess I'll talk about that a little bit more. But the point that I'm giving you here is just to give you an opposite, just to give you an inverse of what I've been talking about. I give you a number that seems high for what we are used to in a certain experience or a certain product or service, but also when it's low. Sometimes things are cheap for a reason. I've talked about this before. When you have, those of you who are salespeople, you sell anything, especially if you create and sell your own products in which you can set the price. When you sell cheap products, you know who you attract? You attract cheap people. You attract cheap customers. Do you want cheap customers? Any of you who has dealt with cheap customers, you probably understand you probably don't want them as customers, because they're not even worth the money that you make from them. The headache that they bring is worth more. The value of their headache is higher than the dollar amount you make from them. So you see how this works. Even as a salesperson, this works for you as well. Let's recap today's topic, which is how to stop being and thinking like a cheap individual. I talked in episode again, 1249, why you should pay for the best, but we got to dig to the roots of people's challenges with paying for things, the fact that they're cheap. Not that you don't have money that you're cheap. It's a difference. Number one, cost and value. Understand the difference between the two and the relationship between the two. Cost is what you pay for something. Value is the importance and usefulness of that thing. When value exceeds cost, we buy. That's what all of us do. That's the formula that we all use unconsciously to make purchasing decisions. And when we feel this equation is out of whack for something that we've already bought, we cancel it, we get a refund. If we're stuck with it, then we're unhappy, such as if you're stuck with a phone company and a contract, stuck with an internet company that you can't change, stuck with shopping at a certain business because there's no other business around that offers that same thing. You're unhappy with the situation even though you keep paying for it. If value does not exceed cost, then you are stuck in a situation such as me stuck with bum-ass AT&T's internet service. Point number 2. The law of association. We judge books by their covers. We literally do. When you go in a bookstore, we judge a book by what it looks like on the outside. We don't get a chance to find out the content of the book if we don't like what it looks like on the outside. And it's the same thing with you. When you are selling yourself to an audience of one person or an audience of 1 million people, those people in that audience are judging you based on your cover. And here's the thing, you're not going to be able to convert all 1 million people to all like you at the same time. So you need to make some conscious decisions of who am I selling to, because there are some people who are going to be turned off by the cover of my book, and there are some people who are going to love the cover of my book. But I need to be conscious, I need to be intentional about who I'm selling to. That's what you need to be doing as a salesperson. When you associate yourself with people who are not cheap, all of a sudden other people are going to treat you like one of them, somebody who's not cheap. When you associate with people who are cheap, people are going to treat you like you're one of them. You take that $1 flight on Spirit Airlines, you're going to get $1 worth of service. That's why I won't take the $1 flight, even though it's only $1. Again, cost and value. You need to understand the difference between the two and also the association between the two. And it's not always determined by is the value more than the cost. And sometimes the value is less than the cost and it's not even worth taking the experience because it's going to cost you more outside of money than you actually pay in money. Point number 3. To not be cheap does not mean to be reckless with your spending choices. It means understanding the value of things and not just the cost of things. Would you pay $500 for a pair of sneakers? Most of you on the surface would say no, but if I told you they were LeBron James game-worn shoes from his first ever game and he autographed them, you could probably sell them on eBay for 20 grand. Would you pay $500 for the sneakers now? You probably would. The question has changed because the value has changed. Would you pay $300 for a cake? Probably not. You can get it at the local grocery store for 25 bucks. Well, if I told you it was your wedding cake, yeah, you would pay $300, you might pay $3,000 for it. What if it's for your best friend? You might pay a little bit more for it just because now you understand the value of the experience or the value of what you're getting out of that cake exceeds the price. When when value exceeds price/cost, that's when we invest in things. So those of you who are cheap, I want you to stop looking at just the numbers of what you have to pay for, what you have to give up in order to get something, and ask yourself, what is the value that I get from this? What is the importance of this? What am I going to get out of this long term, and what is that worth for me? So if you want to be a person who's all about the numbers, dollars and cents, then don't ask yourself just what the cost of something is. Ask yourself also, what's the value that I get out of it? What is that worth to me? What is this experience worth to me? Any of you go on a website where somebody's selling something, often they'll tell you, this is the value of this thing, this is the value of this is the value of this, and they'll add it all up to show you how the value is exceeding whatever you're paying as a cost. And when the value exceeds cost, it only makes logical sense to invest because you're going to make more back from the experience than you had to give up to get into the experience. And that's how any investor gets rich. And that's in money and outside of money. Now, what's going on in the game group? Listen, I'm going to give you over $100,000 worth of value. And that is not an exaggeration. If you go to workonmygame.com/game group, go look at everything that you're being offered in that membership. You're being offered 6 courses that you cannot get access to anywhere else but inside the game group. You're being offered access to over 800 hours of material coming straight from this podcast that you cannot access anywhere else. It's not on SoundCloud. It's not on Apple Podcasts. It is not anywhere that is available to the public. No straggler can listen to episodes of this podcast that are not available in your podcast feed right now. Everything else is only available to game group members. I'm giving you so much value in there that you would be a fool to look at that and not take advantage of the offer that I'm making you. This is how you make value exceed cost. And here's the cost. Free. You can start your game group membership with a 2-week trial. Costs you absolutely nothing. Zero. Free 99 right now to get started. How could you say no to that offer? It's impossible for you to do so. Now go to workonmygame.com/game group. Start your trial right now. Don't be a fool. Understand the difference between value and cost. Work on your game. Dre all day.